Oh my god, are you serious? A boat. Have you seen my schedule? Have you seen the kids? We don't have time for this. We're behind enough as it is.
Wellcraft Eclipse. The Eclipse was the runabout model to break Wellcraft into the 90s, and while it started in '89 and ran until 2001, well, kind of, but more on that later, it slowly evolved throughout the 90s. These early ones rocked the 80s ideal of utility mixed with 90s style. The birth of the integrated swim platform that hit in the late 80s was now commonplace. Antique was officially out of style. Yay, cheap yellow plastic! Curved glass windshields were next, although these early ones weren't quite there yet. But the cuddy cabin layout with the back-to-back seating, that's all 80s. Interesting enough, the game in the 80s was how small of a cuddy cabin can you make? In the late 2000s, early teens, they basically said, the hell with cabins. How big of a bow rider can we make? Which has oddly morphed into how big of a center console boat can we make, as the center console has oddly taken the place of the bow rider, but that's an argument for another time. The back-to-back seating layout is a mixed bag of emotions, as some people really don't want to face backwards. I know, the first thought is, oh man, it's like Dad's station wagon, where unless you're under 10 years old, you probably didn't want to be the poor bastard who sat facing backwards getting stuck in that odd stare-down with a stranger who pulls up behind you at a traffic light. Unlike the station wagon, this seating has its benefits. You get extra storage underneath, and it's really handy when you're towing a skier or tuber not to have to sit sideways and wrench your head around or feel the need to kneel on a bench in order to watch. You get easy access to the front of the engine, so that's kind of nice. And oddly, there's something incredibly therapeutic about watching the wake form out the back. Like staring at a fountain in the park or a shopping mall. It's mesmerizing. When's the last time you just got to quietly sit with your thoughts and stare at something as simple as a fountain? And yes, I know, this seating layout was optional. You could get the now mandated twin buckets with bench layout as well, but if you get the back-to-back seats, then... Being ushered into retirement was Wellcraft's previous generation of small runabouts, which started as the American, which then got named the Classic, and finally Sport. Not sure why, but this previous generation actually coexisted with this new generation Eclipse for a few years, until it finally got killed off. I'm not sure what the point of it was, as who the hell goes to a dealer and says,
"Do you have a new version of the old one you can sell me? I'd rather have obsolete styling and lack of features."
Or maybe it was some sort of tactic of, well, if you walk this way, we do have a cheaper, crappier model we can fit you in. To make matters even more confusing in the late 80s, a third line known as the Elite series also existed, although it was considered to be a little bit more upscale and have a heftier price tag. In any case, by 1989, you had a choice of 3 different lines of runabouts from Wellcraft. What exec thought this was a good move is beyond me. Cocaine! This new generation had sharper lines and a better ride than the previous classic American/sport lineup, and that's saying something because the American rode like shit. Trust me, I know. By all accounts, this is a very well average boat. It's 3,300 pounds, it has an 18-degree dead rise, or maybe it's 20, I don't know. Has your standard 8 or 8.5 foot beam, blah, 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 insert all very average specs here. This isn't a Bayliner, but it's not a Cobalt or Formula. Not quite a Sea Ray, although in this era, Wellcraft was a big player in the marine industry. It's that big player status that was a fairly large driving force. While it looks very plain by today's standards, in a sea of average back in the day, it stood out with its colorful graphics and blacked out trim. Wellcraft was a big name in their Go Fast Scarab series and classic Wave Crusher Nova line. And as the next few years wore on, the Nova line and Eclipse line kind of had this shared look. Okay, I'm rambling, but the point is you probably bought this thing because it was a big name and shared DNA with, let's call them, tougher Wellcraft models. So, should you buy it? Probably not. I mean, yes, at this point it still looks good. But it's just a boilerplate design that really gets lost between brands, especially in this era. I mean, in this size, you have lots of options. True, cuddy cabins are pretty much obsolete nowadays because people quit kidding themselves that they're actually going to overnight in this thing. It's a portalet if you really, really need to go, and you don't mind the fun of cleaning out a porta potty. Yes. But mostly, it's just a closet to shove all your crap in. I thought we already talked about the porta potty. But small cuddy cabin runabouts ran for a solid decade all the way into the 2000s, so it's really just a matter of your budget and how new you can go. The Eclipse, or really just Wellcraft, isn't known as being top quality constructed or really holding up over time. Not really dogging Wellcraft so much as Father Time. Faded gel coat, rotted floors, transom stringers, it's all pretty much a strong possibility you could run into these issues. Assuming you find the one that lived in a garage and had some loving care from an owner, I will say I hope you like sitting down versus standing. Because oddly, they push the dash too far forward, or you could argue the windshield too far back, or maybe it's a problem with the back-to-back seating takes up too much room. I don't know. Either way, on a rough day, your life is going to suck in this thing, as you'll either be forced to sit and get your ass pounded. If you squat, make sure you have a good dental plan because you will get some cracked teeth. And if you stand, your chest is pressed right against the windshield, so that's going to hurt as well. The interior cockpit gunnels are kind of flimsy, so I wouldn't let the kids hang off of them. But you do have strictly Mercruiser, or in a very rare case, Volvo power here, and the motors and drives are all very common. Wellcraft did return to their old tricks by the mid-90s by creating a line of boats known as the Excel line beneath the Eclipse, as well as a line above known as the Excalibur. Cocaine! The Eclipse badge died officially after 98, but the hull lived on as an S or SS or SC or whatever line until 2001. That said, I'd aim for the mid-90s on these, as the end of the millennium was also about to bring the end of Wellcraft, for at least a little bit. And as money started running out, the shortcuts and cost-saving measures started to creep in. End of the day, if you absolutely love the styling and it comes off as a solid boat, you could pull the trigger knowing it's a small investment with pretty standard maintenance and decent support. I wouldn't say it's a bad value for the money, but if you see a Regal, Rinker, Sea Ray, Stingray, Crownline, Celebrity, Glastron, Four Winds, Maxim, Mariah, or really anything else in better condition, maybe you should pass on the Wellcraft and go for the one in best shape. At the end of the day, no matter what runabout you buy, it's really just about the experience. It's about letting go. First question you'll get from the coworkers and neighbors is, "Oh, you bought a boat. Where do you go?" And see, that's not an easy question to answer because somehow people think it's about a location. The reality is it has nothing at all to do with geography, because it's really about letting go of your world, if for just a little bit, and leave it all back on shore. To spend time in a wide open space that isn't in a hurry, isn't opinionated, isn't judgmental, isn't out for a promotion or trying to belittle your accomplishments. It's a place to spend time, real time with people you care about, and table the arguments about report cards, money, or work. To step away from the endless appointments and meetings. It's about breaking that detailed and chaotic routine in the hopes that maybe, just maybe, you'll have that moment where the fuzzy lines in your life sharpen up. If for just a few precious minutes, or maybe even hours, and you remember the big picture, whatever your picture looks like, and bask in it. When's the last time you thought about the big picture in your life? I bet it wasn't while screwing around with your phone or binge-watching Netflix. There's something about letting your primal brain simply have the time to sidebar all the crap we wrap our lives in, and actually give it a chance to connect with something simple and prehistorically familiar to our human being. And give your soul a chance to remember what it all means. How do you put a price on that kind of freedom, on that kind of moment? How do you weigh the hassle, time, and energy to pull all the pieces together for that kind of experience, that kind of memory? Boats like this exist for one reason: to dream. Not dream about career endeavors, status, money, or achieving some picture of perfection. Dreams of escape. Escape from that sometimes terrible world that beats us down. Dreams of something much bigger and simpler in this very short time we take for granted. This one's a simple dream. It doesn't matter what color it is, where the cup holders are located, or what gizmos it has. It's about being on the water and finding a way to leave your stressful world in the wake. James Taylor was quoted as saying, "Being on a boat that's moving through the water, it's so clear. Everything falls into place in terms of what's important and what's not." This is BoatBrain saying, keep that wake rolling. Until next time.